What if you could take that risk, make that change, reach that goal, live your best life? Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast, where we get together with amazing experts and everyday people who share challenges, encourage healing, and explore the possibilities that life has to offer. I'm your host, Gary Scott, and I'm excited that you're along for the ride.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the What If You Could podcast. And today, my guest, you know how I have a thing for authors. I Jones on the authors. I love them. I love authors are just wonderful people. So I have a fabulous author with us today who is Rhonda Parker Taylor. Hi, Rhonda.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so glad that you have all those wonderful books behind you. I want to dive into them and help discover what is it that makes you tick from the books you read.
Well, I've been a bookophile since I was a little kid. Literally from the time I could read when my parents would yell at me and say, "Turn off the light," and I'd get a flashlight and I'd read the books under the covers and still keep reading.
I
I've
look,
always been hooked on books.
I looked at the pictures. I didn't discover that reader part of it until later in life, but I always had a book in my hands. It was an encyclopedia, a magazine, something that showed me what the world was going to be like. And so it was always the things that were colorful, bright, different, etc.
Isn't that great that the books can just take us anywhere, right? I mean, they're always so much better than the movie or I tried to get into Audible books, right? Because I had a lot of radiation done in my brain, and so my comprehension and I read slower than I used to. So I said, I'll try Audible books. That way I could just listen to them. But it's not the same.
It doesn't have the smell, the feel of the book. I, I think that's our generation of doing that, though, because there are people that are more audio. There are people that still love the books, and that's one thing I love about book signings. It doesn't matter whether they like my genre or not, but they're all coming in for the same reason. They have a mission to find their next greatest escape, but whatever it may be, and it may be that they have to do it for school or something, but there's still, and it's the same mission. I have to have a book today.
Yeah, it's funny. You just admitted to being in my self-help group, Book Sniffers Anonymous. We're just we're just out there. There are book sniffers like us out there that either it's a library or an old bookstore, or just you open up one of these books, you go, "Oh man, I love this."
Right.
So welcome in. But I am going to introduce your book real quick. Um, Rhonda Parker Taylor is the author of Crossroads, and it's a suspense thriller. However, it's so much more than that. It's not just a suspense thriller, but it's actually kind of just almost a self-help book with a suspense thriller twist to it. Would that be fair?
That is fair. It's kind of like an Agatha Christie going by and said, you could have avoided that if, you could have avoided this if, and had you just opened your eyes and stayed balanced in your life, you might have not even had to go through any of this.
Darn it, Agatha Christie. Where were you when I needed you, right? So, because this is the What If You Could podcast, I
Mm-hmm.
always ask my guests one question. Hopefully I'll come up with some more, I always ask my guests, um, because we're the What If You Could podcast, did you have a what if you could moment or a what if I should moment or a moment where you're like, God, what if I could do that? I would love to do something. Did you have one of those?
Always. And when I wrote the novel, it was, what if I unleashed the inner beast inside of me and actually showed people I could write? And and so I sat down and did it. I was tired of sometimes having typos and memos and not, and realize and knowing that I was a better person than that. And, and realized that, you know what? It was the courage to transform me to be my excellence. So that would be what I would be, is what if I unleashed that inner beast and actually became an author?
So you've unleashed the beast.
Yes, I
Now,
did.
this is it like, I mean, I've interviewed a lot of authors. I just love authors. I've always wanted to try to write a book, but I just don't have anything interesting to say. So, but is it, now that you've unleashed the beast, did it satisfy that desire? Or are you like, oh no, man, there's a sequel to this. I'm gonna make this a ten book thriller, this Crossroads, or is there more there for you?
There is definitely more there. The problem I had wasn't the writing once I got started, because I started and I did the first one, did the second one, did the third one, did the fourth one, did the fifth one, and then they were sitting in my office in the closet, and my sister had to say, "What are you doing? When are you going to do something?"
Wait a minute. So you've already written 5 books?
Yes, five
Is it
fiction
is
novels.
it
And then with the first one, I have a self-help book that's coming out. And so now I'm scheduling them to come out like every year.
Are they
Just
under the Crossroads umbrella? Like, is your heroine, the young lady Paris, is Paris in the other ones also?
all the characters come back, but they're standalone. So they're, even though they're sequels, you get to learn what each person's challenges mentally, physically, spiritually, just like Paris was out of balance, and every character was out of balance in there. So you have Paris that's out of balance because she's a workaholic. You have Billy Knuckles that's out of balance because he's dedicated to his friends. You have Dave that's out of balance because he's dedicated to law and order and nothing else. And you see, you have everybody out of balance and Crossroads. So then the next one, which is the journey of hope, is all about how we sometimes buy into the fact that we have to be a victim,
Why do we have to buy into that fact?
because we do sometimes. We don't have to, but we do. Oh, it's not my fault. You did it to me. You did it to me. And then there'll be a self-help book on how do you not become a victim.
I love it. So who's going to play Paris in the movie?
You know, I don't know, but I think my endorser might be a good one. Mariel Hemingway.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I saw the on your website. We'll mention all the website and all your awesome places we can find you at the end here. But yeah, I saw. So what was the deal with having her do a blurb for you? What was the deal with that?
So when you finally get the courage up and admit to your sister that she's right, and that you were fearful and afraid of being vulnerable, you go out there and you find a publisher, right? And so I
Yep.
actually found a traditional publisher that pulled the deal after 2 years. And so I was scared to go back to that watering hole. And I'm getting too old. 2 years, I'll probably have one foot in the grave by then, So so I had to really think about that. And so then self-publishing seemed too hard to do by myself, because I have a business that I have to run, and I have all these. And do I have not only just the skill and knowledge, but do I have the time and patience to make sure that the book itself was the best book I could provide for the reader? I'm definitely not, a king or a Kuntz yet. So I knew that product had to be the best I could do for the very first book. And so then I found Mindster Media, which is a hybrid. It takes the traditional route and the self-publishing and pulls them together. They help you figure out how to market it, who's the best endorser if you want an endorser. And then they go and they present the manuscript to whoever it might be. And when they first said, what do you think about having an endorser? Somebody look at your manuscript. And I'm like, well, who would it be? Like a Tori Spellings? Because, you're thinking suspense, why not? Then no, that wouldn't even, that pales against who we think we should have look at it. And I said, well, who? And they said, Mariel Hemingway. And I was like, why would she care? I mean, that was my first thing. Why would she care about a girl from Indiana that wrote a self-help fiction novel that's, that's crime based. That doesn't seem like she said, and the editor said, because it's all about life balance. And her brand and everything she breathes and, eats now is all about self-care and life balance. And I was like, well, that makes sense, but I still, would be surprised. They said, well, let's get you to write the query letter and we'll get it delivered to her people and let's see what happens. And sure enough, 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, I got an email saying she'd accepted it and with the YouTube video and what she had to say. And I was like, that was the thrill of and you ask, is it worth it? And I'm right there was worth it to me. Then, I had to hit reality after I played it 1,000 times. Oh, now I got to present her well. I have to get out there and show that it was worth her doing that.
Well, first of all, Mariel Hemingway is 10 times more badass than Tori Spelling. No offense to Tori Spelling,
Right.
but if I had to pick my choice of actresses, it would be Mariel Hemingway way over Tori Spelling. No offense, Tori Spelling. I'm just saying.
No, I
She's
understand.
way
Oh,
more legit, right? But the other thing is, I want to go back to the publisher because the majority of authors, and I've talked to some of 30, 32 books out, right? Are
mm-hmm.
still self-publishing or going, you're doing kind of a hybrid thing, but a lot of them are still self-publishing. They had to do it in the beginning, but they're like, screw you guys. You didn't want my book then. Forget it. Now that I'm big, this is working for me, right? Um, but so when you did your first book and you brought it to a publisher and they're like, yeah, we're good. And then they screwed you over. But did you already have the other 5 books also, or did you write them after you got screwed over
I was
by the publisher?
in the process of writing them or throughout the whole 2 years because I was like, oh, we got it. Yay, we got a deal. Let's go ahead and get the other ones ready. And then it got pulled at the end. And you're
Oh.
right. Mariel Hemingway is exactly who needed to do it. And she would do a great job if she was the Paris Piddington.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for the movie. I love her. She's awesome. Yeah, and I thought that was a really cool thing. I mean, number one, it adds a real big splash of credibility. Right out the gate, you get a celebrity endorsement like that. But number two, she's real relatable. I mean, people would not go, "Oh, that's bullshit." They'd go, "Oh yeah, I believe that Mariel Hemingway feels the same way about these things and the things that you're trying to address." With your books and your work.
And I think that she really showed it in her YouTube video. It's about 3 minutes long, but the end of it is when I was like, she really did read it. She really did get it. So it was like, okay, this is what I need too, because when she was talking about what the storyline was and how you like some characters and not others, but then she weeded it right back down and she said, but we all come to a crossroads where we all have to make a decision in our lives and make a realization. And then she talked about her own life and she said, we have to decide. And even chocolate has an expiration date.
I love that.
Every time we make a change or we pivot in our lives, and we have to make those big decisions, whether it's a life hit moment or we did it to ourselves moment, it always is a part of whether we are going to have some resilience. Are we going to have fearfulness in it? Are we going to be empowered? Are we going to get strength? Are we going to transform? Are we going to be inspired after this? Where are we going with this? But we have to decide. And if we don't decide, we might be the one like chocolate that gets the expiration date.
Trust me on that. I know about that expiration dates on people, but so the title, The Crossroads, when I first saw that and I saw Crossroads, a suspense thriller novel, my brain immediately went to a different crossroads than maybe like what you're saying now and what Meryl touched on is like in our lives we all come these crossroads. Like I've said 100 times. Had I gone had a veered left instead of right, when I came to that Y in the road in life, shoot, I mean, things would be completely different in my life. I mean, three very distinct should have gone left when I went right, or should have gone right in my life that have changed my life.
Right.
Right. So was that more of the purpose of Crossroads? Is when we come to a fork in the road, take it.
It's come to the, well, there was actually, it's multifaceted. So if you look at the cover, it has the railroad tracks, and the railroad tracks represents and is an actual place in Indianapolis. Indianapolis is considered the crossroads of America because all the train tracks came through Indiana. And if you wanted to go to New York and go to California, you had to go through Indiana. If you want to go from Chicago and you want to go south, you got to go through Indiana. And so everything was shipped through Indiana. So Crossroads, and the setting is Indianapolis. So Crossroads comes from that. Then the railroad tracks also, like as you explained, the decisions we make, we have a crossroads. I deliberately had the first scene be the body being dropped on the railroad tracks because it is a crossroads, obviously, for that young woman that was left there, and it's also a crossroads for the police officers that have to come to the scene. There's one that's a rookie, never been to a homicide. There's one that's senior, that's got to help the patrolman get the site together for the homicide unit to come. Then you have everybody throughout the whole course. It's about life balance, but everybody's reaching a crossroads. It's like every time you get into the legal system, there is no winner. Everybody's a loser. So Paris gets called to jury duty. She can't go to work, which is what she loves. That's where she's supposed to be. That is her purpose, her identity. So she's trying to get back to work when she was supposed to be a juror. You've got, the police officer that lost his innocence. You've got the family that lost their loved one. You've got all these people at a crossroads. Then you're throwing them in a room and say, get along.
And she is supposed to be in charge of all these drunk monkeys running around.
Right, basically.
Yeah. How much of Paris is you?
I would say all of the characters have me in it. I mean, seriously, even the girl that's dropped on the railroad tracks when I was younger, there was someone that pulled a knife on me. And now, obviously, I'm still here. I didn't die. But I visited that in my journaling of it. What would have happened if I had died? What would the lives be around me? It's not about me. It's not about any crime. It's a fiction crime. But same thing, Billy Knuckles, the co-defendant. What would have happened if I had gotten in a car with somebody?
Wait. What did you say that name was?
Billy Knuckles, like a knucklehead.
Billy Knuckles?
Yeah.
I love it. So you had someone pull a knife on you when you were little?
Oh, yeah.
That's a pretty traumatic incident right there.
Yeah, I was 17. And actually I would say 16 or 17. But when I told them I was 15, they let me go.
Wow. Thanks God for that it wasn't a complete psycho, just a partial psycho.
Right, exactly. There's good in everybody. And that's part of the premise of In Crossroads is even the worst of the worst sometimes have moral boundaries.
There's redeeming qualities in everybody. Sometimes you have to really dig deep for it, like in politicians and attorneys. But there's still down there deep. There's still some redeeming in pretty much everybody. But so you mentioned what was it? Your sister who said, "Hey, get back on that horse, man. You're no quitter. Get your butt back out there. Get another publisher. These are good. You need to keep going with this stuff."
Right. Exactly. And we all need an accountability partner. It could be, a significant other. It can be your sister or your brother. It can be, a friend. It could be a writing group. It can be, it can be anybody that's willing to be authentic to you. Not someone that has envy in their bones and they don't want to see you succeed and they slice down the description so it's not so good or it does so it fits their thought, but someone that has the courage to help you be the best version of you as a writer. And it could be through a writing group. It could be a beta reader. It can be an editor, but it's got to be somebody that's authentic and will allow you to still grow and show that inner beast that we talked about earlier. When you do that, then what ends up happening is you end up developing as a better person because you've had the courage to really go through the whole process. And feedback's important.
Did you I know as you're putting this together and it's got the thriller aspect, it's got parts of you aspect, but it's also like a self-help journal novel, right? I mean, it's really got aspects of it that are important to life and people's life. Yeah.
Yeah, I wanted it to have a message that would resonate with people. So not only did it have the life balance where you see that each one's got a loyalty to something that's not necessarily healthy, but I wanted it to have a message about what we do to our own self when we're not authentic to ourselves. Because usually we put loyalties and things outside of ourselves when we aren't being authentic about who we are and our purpose. So I went through and said, what are the emotions? Because in my academic world, I studied emotional intelligence. I did a lot of studies for the UN Global Compact Committee. And I had to say, what unites people to commit crime? Okay, so you got a fire and what's going to be the match? Anger, fury, and envy are the three emotions that I explore. And Proverbs says, anger is cruel, fury is overwhelming, but who can stand before jealousy? Envy makes the bones rot. So all three of them, and think about today's world. We have road rage, we have fury, you can't go to a grocery line without seeing someone fight. Today I just heard that there was a school shooting that in a private school. I went to a private school. I never would have thought that, a Christian private school would have someone that would be that furious that they would take 5 people's lives, right? So then you have envy. Where does that come from? Well, we're comparing ourselves on social media, on TV. We're all supposed to be the Kardashians.
Thank God we're not all the Kardashians.
Exactly. But that's the way we think we're supposed to be living.
Why do you think, I mean, obviously these things are in the Bible, so obviously these things have been around for a long time. But don't you think, like you said, in recent times, I don't know, since back to the 60s or with Vietnam and things like that, but I think even like in the last decade, those things have kicked off like huge. Like, what is going on around here with people just full of so much fear? The kids don't even know what sex they are anymore. People have no identity. People are angry, like triggered angry. And then it's so easy to be envious of other people and have jealousy of people because everyone posts all this fake bullshit on social media. And you think, well, I want that. I mean, where do you think this is coming from all of a sudden?
We don't know who we are anymore, and we think that the life is better on the other foot. When I work with a client in my consulting, the very first thing I say, if you wake up tomorrow and your life is exactly the way you think it's going to be, what does it look like? Go shopping, pick the house, do this, do this, do this. And then we deconstruct it because you have a vision there. And when I first did it for me, I wanted 18 bedrooms, 6 dining rooms, this and that. And then I wanted to live in the old money part of Indianapolis and on Meridian Street where they had the big mansions and the houses are 200 years old. And that's, and I had to really think about it. I was young when I did that. Do I want to clean and maintain 18 bedrooms? No. I want to try to entertain in 19 dining rooms? No. What is it that so I bought into what I thought I was supposed to want, not what was authentic to me and intentionally picked for me. So if you can deconstruct the vision to be authentic to you, and when I mean that's a kind of a cliche word these days, be authentic. I don't want something that big. I want to be around a park. I don't want to be up against, other people either. I don't want the sky rise, so I had to go through and I had to pick what I really wanted. And it ended up being a small 2.5, I would say, bedroom house with enough bathrooms for anybody that's visiting so that we don't have a line, and a park, a three acres where all the wildlife that's in Indiana can come through. It doesn't matter if it's a raccoon that thinks he's hiding when I'm standing in the bay window and I see him holding on to the tree because he thinks someone's coming out, or whether it's a deer and the doe's coming through, or the coyote that's hunting squirrel, or the fox that's being chased or running like crazy, and you see him hop over an 8-9 foot fence and you wonder how in the world they did that when they were on the other side of the road the last time you saw them. And you get, for me, that's happiness. Not for everybody. Some people be afraid, I don't want those critters around me. But I find joy in seeing wildlife in their natural environment. And yes, it's still an urban setting because I live in the city, but it's enough for them. So I have urban wildlife, and they're used to the cars away, but it's enough that I find contentment, and it reminds me of human behavior. I can watch a hawk as he's walking around with the other birds and animals, grooming them. So when he's hungry, he can grab them. And you sit there and watch these things happen. And it reminds you what human nature's like. How we treat wildlife has a lot to do with our worldview.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, I was thinking to myself when you started with the living at the Palace of Versailles, I was thinking, I'm kind of more, give me 800 square feet on 1,000 acres. You know what I mean? I'll pee outside. I really don't care. I mean, I just, there's something about the tranquility. So you have 3.5 acres?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I've got acre envy right now. But yeah, I mean, there's something about what it does for your soul when you have space and you have wildlife and greenery. Like I'm a real grounder. Like at every opportunity I can, my shoes are off. If I can do it, my clothes are off, but definitely my shoes. I golf barefoot. People just make fun of me because when I go golfing, I golf barefoot because how many opportunities do you have to spend 4 hours on grass anymore, right?
Yeah, you don't get that.
You don't at all. And everything feels better when I'm walking around on that golf course and in barefoot. But so this is your home, this is your sanctuary, this is where you're able to do your writing, your thinking, and then you said consulting. What type of consulting do you do?
So the kind of people that I typically work with, one is academic because I have an academic background. I work with a lot of the colleges, and I do, mentoring for capstone projects and dissertations and help them get through the process, make sure that they're going to get through and get approved. So that's one kind of client, which would be the academic client. But then that kind of naturally created another group of individuals, those in transition. Those that have been downsized and they don't know how to look for a job in today's market, or need to figure out what skills they need to even look for a job in the market today. Those that maybe have been at home and they're recreating their lives. So I've kind of created this market for myself through my own life hits, because I was a campus director at the college level. And then when life hit me, I couldn't do that same kind of love and compassion with that age group, because my son had been shot and killed at work. And going back and working with the same age group in a large population versus one-on-one was very difficult. So I stepped back and I started doing more of the teaching and the mentoring, and then it just grew into its own consulting.
Wait, whoa. Did you say your son was shot at work?
Yes.
Your son was shot in work.
Mm-hmm.
Holy cow, I didn't kind of see that anywhere. You you don't talk about that much, or
Yes, I do. It just depends if we're talking about resilience or we're talking about um, life changes and how do you handle life change. Because sometimes you don't. Sometimes we talked earlier about us putting ourselves through our own life change moments where maybe we made the wrong decision or whatever. It could be a financial, it could be a relationship, it could be, those are the kind of things we do to ourselves. And maybe we decided we're going to go through a period of life where we're drinking too much or whatever it might be, right? Those are ones that we do to ourselves. But the other thing that people go through are ones they have no control over. So the person pulling the knife on me, my son getting shot and killed. He was my adopted son. Me and another woman had decided I would raise him because she wanted better for her son. And we got him all the way through adulthood. And then he was working one night and then the next morning I got a knock at the door saying he'd been shot and killed.
wow. Yeah,
And
that's wicked bad.
moments that you can't plan for, but you have to have a reservoir within yourself to continue to move forward. And for me, writing helps me do that because it allows me to process things through the characters that I'm developing. I do a SOAP note on each one, which is a medical terminology for telling the whole history mentally, physically, that a person's gone through. And then I write about the character. So as they develop, if they get into a stressful situation and they have emphysema, they're going to cough. If they get in a stressful situation and they have anxiety, they're going to feel like they're having a heart attack. So I have a realistic view of how either me or even a fellow friend might go through a situation.
It's interesting. It seems like your entire family is in your family business. Was it Noble Industries?
Yes.
Yeah. And then you're not. Are you the black sheep of the family, or everyone's just like, "Hey, I'm totally cool that you want to be an author and you're not going to be in the family business with us." Because
Yes.
they're all in it, right?
Yes, yes, and yes. All of the above. So my dad had a philosophy. I did work there. My dad had a philosophy that you had to work outside of the company before you stayed in management. So you fly the coop and then you can come back. Well, when I flew the coop, I didn't come back, and it wasn't healthy for me, and I didn't think it as a leader. I didn't think it was healthy for the organization to have more. But yes, 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 and yes, I can check all those boxes. You can say I was the black sheep. I was in education, there in manufacturing. So there's definitely different mentalities of what we look at. Yes.
It's very hard to work in the family business. I
Oh,
grew up working at my father's drugstore from the time I was 4 years old, stocking shelves or sweeping or whatever until they end up losing it in one of the recessions. I don't even remember which one. But it's hard. And my son and I work together. We own a real estate company and we work together. It's hard being in the family business, and my son's 30. My oldest son is 30. Well, is he 31? I don't remember how old he is. But he's much smarter than me. He knows much more than me. He has no problem calling me to the table and letting me know that he knows much. No matter the fact that I've been doing this business 35 years, it doesn't matter, you know.
No,
So it's hard. It's hard being in the family business. I prefer to be the black sheep of the family myself.
I think that what happens is you either have to learn to acclimate and merge. In that case, like, so we all worked there very young. There's 5 of us kids, so you already know that that's already a mess. And um, you know, bagged feet, which are the little plastic feet, they go on the bottom of aquarium stands so they don't scratch because it was metal and steel. And it started in the barn, and it's very successful. And the 2 that are running it right now, my younger brother and my sister, they do a wonderful job. They've helped it grow, probably 10 times more than it was under my father. So they're doing a great job, and I can stay the black sheep.
I think that's good. But you always were a worker. It wasn't that you weren't a worker bee. I mean, you worked as a kid. You went to work. You worked at Arby's for a little bit. I mean, you were a worker. So it wasn't like you weren't. But then you ran into that teacher that kind of gave you, or counselor. Was it a counselor or a teacher? Someone
It
who
was
kind of gave you a different perspective on stuff?
an English teacher. So I was social when I was younger, and
I can't see that at all.
and so they were always trying to get me to sit still, be quiet, do your work, all the things that that just didn't come natural to me. And as my dad would say, you're like a damn butterfly. You hop from flower to flower. And we had to pass an English proficiency test to graduate. That's unheard of in the public schools. But if you didn't get a B, you weren't graduating. Wow. And it was my junior year, and we were talking, and she said, "Well, I'll tutor you over the summer, and then you can take it your senior year again." And I sat on the floor and in her home, and we talked, and she tutored me, and I realized I could do it. It was a matter of me slowing down and paying attention, but it still was a weakness for me. And then when it came to pay her, because I'd gotten a job at Arby's, she said after she had learned my story and my struggles that year, that because I had worked someplace else before Arby's, and that's where the knife had been pulled on me. And she realized that I had a lot going on as a young woman to try to stay, as I thought was important, social and be interactive and still do all the things in school that was there, and try to pay attention in class and pass an English proficiency test. And she'd gotten close enough to learn those struggles. And she said, you don't owe me a thing. Just pass the test. And I passed the test, and that changed the whole trajectory of my life. I ended up going to college in Texas. I got away from the situation that I felt unsafe in. And, it changed everything. I got my bachelor's, my master's, my doctorate. So it all worked out for the good.
Did that also maybe give you that little spark for mentoring after being mentored by someone and having that life changing go, man, it can really change someone's life by mentoring?
Yes, the mentoring of her. And, I wished she had still been around to see the book come out. Now, I have talked to her daughters, and her daughter came to a book signing, and it meant something to them because that's how loving their mother was. And then also, I would say the other thing that made me want to do the mentoring is my own struggles that I put maybe myself through. So I wanted to help people. It's about starting and finishing. It's not about how perfection in the middle of all this. You just have to get through it. So helping people along, I think. And then in my first professional job outside of my dad's business, I had two or three of the best female mentors or superiors that I'd ever had the pleasure of knowing. They had a kindness and a compassion with everything they did, everything. And I would say Paris, in a lot of cases, has some of their characteristics, because they're, you just wanted to be mad at them because they were so darn perfect, but you couldn't be mad at them because they were so darn perfect, and it never made you mad at them. Yes. I would say that, some of that comes from that, and seeing how professional people, men and women, can actually be good, and they don't have to be this other version of leadership.
Yeah. I hear that a lot when I do these, and I meet different people in different fields and stuff like that. And I've always found, I mean, it's very rare that it's not true, but I've always found that the most successful people are also the most giving and sharing people. They want to share. They want to see other people do well. Most of them have brought themselves up from the bootstraps, and so they get it. It's rare that I've met someone who's really successful that's a real douchebag or says, "Hey, go find out yourself." I mean, usually they're very caring people, sharing people.
And that's what made me successful in college. And it's not that I'm this great person, but I read Daniel Goleman's books on emotional intelligence, the EQ, the soft skills. And what I found in that is you don't have to be the brightest bulb in the bunch to be successful.
Thank God for that.
Oh, I know. You don't have to. As long as you start developing your interpersonal skills, and especially that one first, where you're self-aware of how you impact others and how they impact you. You have some self-regard for others. You get to the point where you can self-actualize and help others. Then you can move to that interpersonal skill area and, have some social responsibility, where we really know that the impact is there, and, have some empathy for people. And then you can problem solve based on all of that. Then you're going to be a better human. And that's, should be our real reality test. Are you a human being, or are you a human doing?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, is that part of your workbook? I mean, you've got a workbook besides the Crossroads and the other books. I mean, what's the deal with the workbook? Does it basically entail some of the things you just brought up?
Yeah. So the workbook is, if you look at that body in the middle, and it's got scales right there. This is the cover, and it's everything that we put into there.
So what does it say? A journey to life balance.
A journey to life balance. And what it does is it makes you do your vision first. Then we deconstruct, are you really doing anything on that vision? Because most of the time when you say you want this, and then you say what you're really doing, you're not doing anything that you say you're enjoying. Let's say you say for entertainment, you enjoy puzzles. And then you say, well, what have you been doing for the last 2 weeks for entertainment? Oh, I've watched the Kardashians, or whatever on TV, or, CNN, Fox, whatever. And so you start creating a real plan based on 13 dimensions. Once you've deconstructed what you really want and deconstructed what you're really doing, you can say, okay, physical wellness. Well, we all say we want to be healthy, but one day you might be sitting too much, and the doctor may say you have peripheral morbus, like which happened to me. Nobody wants to know that they've been sitting so much that they've turned into a chair. But that's what happened to me. And I was warned by that. My husband warned me. He says, you're going to turn into a chair if you don't get up and start moving. Yeah. But I didn't listen. I had to wait till I went to the doctor, and they said, peripheral morbus. And I'm like, what's that? And they said, well, it's because you've been sitting and you need to start stretching your glutes. And so I go home and I look it up as butt wasting away. I didn't want to hear that. No woman wants to hear your butt is wasted away. So what I have to do incremental changes. It doesn't mean that I have to be in the gym 3 hours a day. It means I need to stand. It means I need to walk. It means I need to put some berries in my life, because I need some anti-inflammatories. Then, your intellectual growth. Where are you going to grow mentally? What are you going to put as a focus to entertain the mind and keep it stretched? It's a muscle too. Doesn't have to be much. It could be a podcast.
Did you say 13 something? Did I
Dimen-
hear you say 13 what? Because you cut out for a second.
13 dimensions. So
13
physical,
dimensions. Okay. Okay.
intellectual growth. Everybody out there listening, hit like, share, and subscribe because you're doing intellectual growth with a podcast. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be, I have to read the encyclopedias today. It's just those little incremental changes. Emotional well being, we've already talked about that. Learning how to manage your emotions, your personal integrity. You are going to go down the wrong path if you don't know what your values are.
Yeah.
Because you get swayed easy by peer pressure, by impulses, whatever, your spiritual connections, your romantic partnerships. So we go down 13 dimensions and go through each one and set 1 year, 3 year, 5 year goals that are like little check marks. And hey, I can accomplish this and feel better and intentional about my life. Make sure you're getting outside. Make sure you're seeing, all these things. So you have full life satisfaction.
Where did you come up with 13 dimensions?
Well, when I was in my 20s and I wanted to take a road trip to the West Coast, I was like, I want to improve myself. And I was working for these women that I was telling you about that I thought were perfect. And I'm like, well, what do I think I need to work on? So I went to the bookstore and they had career home balance. They'd have, this, but they didn't have one. You saw all of, so I was like, okay, we gotta pull all of this together and have an overview so you can have one resource and sit down with yourself or others. And I started doing it, and then I started doing it when I was a college professor with my students in the business 101 class, getting to know yourself as a leader. And you have to, do your finances and your budget. And so I would do these 13 dimensions with them because I wanted them to be a better person as they were out there in the world too. So I kind of pulled it all together and, made a workbook out of it.
That's awesome. Oh, that's all. And you had all those young, fresh guinea pig minds to run
Right.
it by and kind of test it and kind of work through it with them because, you know, all of the different things that you touched on, we always hear about the wheel. You put the wheel and you put the line and you grade yourself on each line inside the wheel, your health, your life, your love, your relationships, money, whatever, and your wheel is supposed to turn perfectly because they're all supposed to be in alignment, right? But
Mm-hmm.
my wheel goes clunk, 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 clunk because it's just not possible to be in alignment with everything, right? So, did you think that workbook helps you find? You can't be perfect in all 13 things. It's just
Right.
impossible. But do
But
you think it helps you zone in on what really core values you have or what you really want?
right. And it's not about every day you're on all 13. What you do is you can go back and you can look at it and you can say, oh, wow, I haven't done anything for my significant other. I think I'm going to write them a love note or whatever, that might bring satisfaction in the area that you have, but you already have it in there of what you can do. And it's like, it's not about your word of perfect is exactly right. You can't be perfect. There's no way. There's going to be a time that you have to do overtime. There's going to be a time when you got to pay more attention to your health. Maybe you have a cold and you're in bed or whatever, and you're down and, you can barely move. There's going to be those life moment times. But if you have a plan of resilience, it's built in already. Life hits, boom. Okay, what am I going to do? Well, I can pick up the phone and I can call my great aunt. I can do this networking. I can do, you already have it there.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Well, I'll tell you what, this is we just go on just about that for another hour because this hour just freaking flew by. But yeah, that's super great. I love the idea of the crossroads. I try so hard to go through an author's book before I talk to them on a podcast, but I just haven't been able to do it lately, even the auto book. I love that. I love the workbook. I love the 13 dimensions, being able to go back and say, gosh, I've been so good with this, but I'm lacking in that. And let's just pick that up. Doesn't mean I have to drop that, but like you said, when's the last time I said something nice to my spouse, or when's the last time I walked around the block, or when's the last time I ate something a little bit healthier because I've been
Yeah.
focused on this. So, yeah, that's really cool. I love that.
The easy things that bring us the most nutrition packed full, and you actually like them. you know you don't have to be on the fad diet that just put something healthy in you so that you're not all processed food and lead water.
It's so much easier than we make it. For some reason, we fight it. It's just so much easier to eat healthy then. But anyway, well, we can go on for that one for another year. But so you're awesome. This has been so much fun, Rhonda. I love the Crossroads. The workbook. Put that up again. What's the workbook again? A Journey to Life Balance. Okay, well, we're going to have all this. We're going to have the links to all of this on the podcast. We're going to have a link to the information, link to the books, link about you and stuff like that. But before we go, I always ask, yes, I do the what if you could question, but I always give you a heads up on that one. But before we go, I always ask someone one last question, if I may. And the last question is, um, it doesn't have to be about your life, your upbringing, your books, your workbooks, anything that's happened to you. But if there's something that you want to leave our guests with that says, Rhonda Parker Taylor, this means something to me. This is a quote I live by, or a thought I live by, or something I want to share as we sign off with our guests. What would be a final thought you'd like to leave us with?
If it's meant to be, it's up to me. You can't rely on everybody else to do what you need, what's important to you. You have to do it yourself. I hated it when my dad would tell us that. And never compare yourself to others. Just go out and do what's meant for you to do. If it's meant for you to go for a drive, you don't have to have somebody in the passenger seat. And that's where my mom would have said, make sure you have keys in hand, money in pocket, gas in tank. There you go. Great.
Okay, so say it again. Now your dad's saying, you're off to the saying.
If it's meant to be, it's up to me.
Now, I've lived by that forever. A guy told me that, 127 years ago when I was still old. But he always phrased it this way. He says, there's 10 two-letter words, and those 10 two-letter words are the only thing you've got to think about. If it is to be, it is up to me. So your dad put meant in there.
Mm-hmm.
The way I always heard it is when I read that in your bio, I thought that's so funny because I've always heard if if it is to be, it's up to me, right? 10 two-letter words. But your dad threw meant in there, which I thought was kind of cool. And I was going to ask you about that, and I totally spaced and forgot because I never write shit down.
I think, I would say it, knowing his personality, meant basically don't put it on anybody else. Don't put it on you. If it's meant, then you'll do it. If it's not meant, then you won't do it.
Yep. So instead of if it is to be, your dad put if it's meant to be. And I just thought that was a cool little twist on that thing. But so Rhonda, you've been awesome. This hour just freaking blazed by. I thank you for joining me. I thank you for all your insight, sharing your book, sharing your story, sharing your workbook. We're going to put all this out there for everybody. And Rhonda, you've been great. I can't thank you enough. This has been fun.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Bye, everybody. Have a great day.
See you guys. Tune in next time. Love you. Well, how'd that go?
It went great. It was easy as pie.
Yeah, that hour goes by so fast. Sometimes I just can't even believe it. And that's why I don't write down questions because I don't want people to go in a different direction in my direction. I want them to go in their direction. And I just think it makes for better.
Conversation. It's more conversational, and you can get
Yeah. Yeah.
from each person and play off of it. And like you're
Yeah, it's
having,
not an interrogation for crying out loud. But I do want to get a quick blurb. Maybe we can get a fun little reel out of this. So I'm going to ask you something
okay.
brought up. So, all right, Rhonda, in Crossroads, you've got all these characters, right? And I love them all. So, who is Billy Knuckles, and where did Billy Knuckles come from?
Billy Knuckles is every single person out there that didn't have the ability to say no when they knew that they should. Think about it. You got in the car and your friend was drunk. You went to the party that you shouldn't have. You, whatever it may be, and then you wake up with a hangover the next morning thinking, what the heck did I do to myself?
So, is it Billy Knucklehead or Billy Knuckles?
Billy Knuckles.
Billy Knuckles.
They do call him a knucklehead eventually in it.
No, yeah, he might get to Knucklehead, but initially Billy Knuckles is just great. I think that's a great character. We all know Billy, and we've all been Billy.
Yes.
Well, that's awesome. I'm gonna try to make a reel out of that or a blurb out of that because that's awesome.
That's
But
great. I think that would be a good one.
yeah, yeah, you've been great. Okay, I'm gonna stop this real quick.
Thanks again for joining us on another episode of What If You Could podcast. Please subscribe, like, share, and give us any feedback. We'd love to hear it. And remember, if you can dream it, you can do it. See you next time.